Okay. I'm going to open up Notepad too, because that's always handy for these things. Okay, so JavaScript 3. So imagine if you wanted to have, you had a set of user profiles and you want to somehow display them on a web page, okay? And you want to be able to modify or otherwise alter the list using JavaScript. Like, for example, not just modify individual profile attributes, but also add and delete records, display them in new orders, things like that. So the way you would start, first of all, you'd define this object structure in the initial array. You can't modify the array until you have an array object to work with, right? So you create a var for the array. Then you create the input mechanism. Okay, so whatever mechanism the user uses to bring in new input, some set of HTML input fields or some external data source, whatever. Then typically, if you're adding new elements to the array, in many cases you would want to include a check for duplicates. For example, if you're creating a list of student names and somebody tries to insert themselves into the list of records, it would go through some kind of scan, check for names, and see, oh, we already have this one in here. That's exactly what happens on Blackboard, for example, when I try to enter new students to a site. You know, if I add a new student, it first checks, is the student already enrolled in the course? And if they are, then I get that message. And if they're not, it says, okay, the student's enrolled now. Then finally, while we're testing this, right, while we're testing to make sure the application runs correctly, we want to do some diagnostics and just display the results of any command to the system that we make. So whatever kind of update we make, we just want to show that it will process through correctly. Okay, so let's do this. All right. So let's suppose our profile is a set of a name, a city, and an email address. So the object structure would look like this, right? If we had a var profile, for example, if it had a name attribute, let's say this one is Betty Spaghetti, city attribute, and we have the string Chicago, and the email betty@pasta.net. So all of these things, they're simply strings. They could be whatever other objects we want, but in this case, we just want to display the data. And then our array is going to be a set of profiles. So however many profiles you have n profiles, you could create the array of those ones, okay? Wonderful. So let's assume we've gotten the data from somewhere. I mean, we could always set it up where the user has to enter in a bunch of profiles to start with, but that's kind of tedious as we're going through the testing. So let's create an initial batch of data. So I'm going to lift these straight from the slides, and I'm going to paste them into Notepad. Ta-da! Okay, so here we are, profile 1, profile 2, profile 3, profile 4. Okay, so we have four names. They all have a name, a city, an email, and we're good to go. Okay. So there's that. Now again, want to make sure that if you're doing this by yourself, you absolutely need to make sure that these quotes here, they're straight vertical, right? Straight up and down. If they're the curly quotes that you get in like Microsoft Word, for example, it's not going to work, right? Similarly, if there's any incorrect syntax in here, right, you got like a missing bracket or a missing colon, something like that, right? That's going to throw off your whole application, and none of it's going to work right. Okay, so when you're doing JavaScript, you got to be really careful, because you just get a blank page, it doesn't do anything, and you got to dig through the whole thing, figure out what went wrong. So you don't want to do that. Okay. Next thing, we're going to create a div. Okay, so a div object. We'll have a little bit more to say about divs later in the lecture. But this div is going to contain a bunch of input fields and then a submit button. Okay, so let's lift all this. Don't need to do anything fancy for this. Okay, we'll paste this into Notepad too. Okay, we'll do some more with this. Let's take these initial profiles too and put them in a script block. That seems like a very sensible thing to do, so we don't forget to do that later. Because that's all JavaScript code, and it'll need to be in a script block eventually. Okay, so here we have our div, right? What are our first fields? Our first field is first name, and there's an input block for that. The second one is last name. There's an input block for that. Third one is city, input block for that. Email, okay, a double BR just to give an extra line space, and then a submit button down below. Now you'll notice on these, right, if you've forgotten how we do the inputs, they have a value. So the value is the initial contents of the field. So we can go ahead, we can paste all this in. Let's go find our W3 schools. W3 schools. Whoop. Oh, I want to do the try it now. There we go, try it, boom, there it is. Okay. So let's paste all this in. Here we have the body of it. We're just going to paste our content into here. Kaboom. Okay, so we got div, 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 and then a paragraph, and then our script. Okay, so this much works correctly, right? We start off with this input block. We have our first name, last name, city, email. If I want to give a little bit more space between things, I can put in some extra BRs down here. Some breaks. Okay. Maybe that looks a little better. I don't know. You decide. But that's fine. That works. Okay. And then if I hit the submit button, well, of course, at this point, clicking the submit button doesn't actually do anything, right? So I have this button here, but nothing happens on the on click. So I can click it because it's a button, but clicking it doesn't do anything. For those of you who are watching along, I'm just clicking it. It's not really doing anything. Okay. So that's it. What do we have here? We have our set of profiles, we have our array framework, we have our input mechanism. Now we're ready to actually do something with all these page elements. Okay, so the input mechanism, we're going to use these input boxes. Okay, same input boxes in our form example, but we're going to process them locally. Okay, when we did it before, it went, when we did it in W3 schools, it got processed somewhere else. The request, the data got sent to some server and it sent us back a response. We don't need to do that. We're just going to do it here locally on our page. And the key thing, we're going to read their value attributes instead of their inner HTML attributes. All right, so many of the things that we've done before, we've been reading data, we're changing data on our HTML tags. We read the inner HTML attribute. But this one, this is going to be the value. This is going to be what's actually contained in the box. Okay. So our basic function that gets called, this is our one called array stuff. And this is the structure. Fundamentally, what's going to happen, we're going to build our initial array. In this case, we're going to read 4 profiles from our, from our script that we've already done. They pre-exist. Other cases, we might build an array that contains nothing, or we might build an array that drags in data from a database somewhere. But this time, we're just going to use the 4 we've hard-coded into the page. Okay. Then we're going to get element. That's going to read whatever element is currently in all those input fields. Okay, so when we click submit, it's going to construct the initial array. It's going to get the element from the array, from the input fields. It's going to add it, right? It's going to add that profile that we've just created, and add that to our list. And then we're going to show the contents of the updated array. So for every one of those profiles, we're going to display those in some sort of paragraph tag. So we're going to add this to our code. Let's lift that. We're going to lift this and add it to our code. Okay, we'll put this inside a script. Boom. So this is our function array stuff. And we're going to need to build out these 4 functions before anything can work. So let's go on. Did I jump ahead? Yeah, okay. So first thing, we're going to build the array, then we're going to push the new profile to it. Okay, so build array is going to be very simple. We're going to use these 4 profiles we have hard-coded into our system. Okay, our add element method, we're going to accept some new profile. We'll call that para for parameter. And we're going to scan through our list of existing profiles. Okay, so we have this loop here. So for var index equals 0, index less than array dot length index plus plus. We're going to start off at index 0 of our array. We're going to start off at the first element. we're going to continue doing this loop. We're going to continue repeating the loop as long as that index value is less than the array length. And then at the end of every iteration of the loop, we're going to increment index by 1. So basically this means we're going to check index 0, we're going to check index 1, we're going to check index 2. We're going to go through the whole array until we reach the end. And if at any of those times we find that the email match, because that's what we're going to use as our unique identifier for a profile, if the email matches, we're going to return. We're just going to pop out of that loop and nothing's going to happen. Otherwise, we're going to push that new profile to our array. We're going to tack it onto the end. If you recall the push function that we had the other day, the push method of array, we remember that it adds a new array element to the last index, right? It appends it onto the array. So these are two bits of code. Let's lift those and put them in. Okay, so here we have our profile. We're going to create the array of the profiles. And we have this one, this function. Okay, so we have that. We have build array. We have add element. We don't have get element yet. Okay, but that's okay for now because we're going to get that real soon. All right, next function, get element, reads the values from each of the input objects, assigns them to profile attributes. Okay, so what we do here, this is our function, get element. What happens, we have some profile. Okay, profile is going to be this. We're going to have to modify this slightly. We're going to have to create, a var profile that exists in our document somewhere. But for this one, its name is going to be whatever is in the first name field. Okay, so that's the input that has the ID first name. We're going to have a space, and then we're going to, we're going to add this last name element and the city and so on. So let's grab this and bring it in. Oh, wrong document. Okay. So the name, right, we're going to give it a name. It's going to be whatever they added in for the first name and the last name. The city is going to be the city that gets read from the input field. And the email is going to be whatever string gets read from the email attribute. Okay. And then this one, document get element by ID, we're going to just leave that blank. It's not going to have anything. We're going to clear it is what we're going to do. Okay. Okay, but we don't have an ID element at this moment, so that's fine. Okay, let's create our new var. So we'll put that up here in the var profile. So we got to do that so that we have a place to store this stuff, right? We're going to say profile equals whatever. So we're called build array. We're going to read all these profiles. We're going to get the element. We're going to assign these values to profile. Okay, and then we're going to show the array. That's the last thing we got to do. Okay, should I make a thing, an ID tag? Let's make an ID tag in a minute. We'll have that for later on for our stuff. Okay. So that's it. That's our stuff. Let's ask, well, what are we going to do then? Well, this is our last function, show array. We're going to make a loop through the array, scans through it, reads from each element. And we're going to introduce a new function, the append child, that adds new elements within the div block. Okay, so fundamentally within the DOM tree, what's going on is something like this. Here's our div. And let's put it in. Okay, our div is going to have a bunch of HTML tags within it, right? However we structure them. But suppose we have a bunch of paragraph tags. Okay, each one of those has a couple things. Number one has the tag itself, but number two, it also has any text that's inside, right? The inner HTML, if you like, in this case. And each one of these paragraphs has some kind of text inside, has its own custom text inside. Clean that up a little bit. All right, and when we're updating the tree, what we are doing is, first of all, we can do a few things. We can, number one, add a new tag with, attributes. So if we wanted to, we could add a new paragraph tag. We could insert it somewhere in here, okay, and we could add these any attributes to it as well. Or number two, change a tag in its current location, right? Basically replace a tag. That's a better choice of word. Okay, so if I say, oh, I don't want this to be a paragraph tag anymore, I can make this something else, right? And of course, you can delete a tag. Now, if we're just changing an attribute of something, anybody here if we're just changing an attribute of something, we don't have to modify the DOM tree, right? We're just changing some characteristic down at the end. But if we want to change one of these tags or add a new tag or delete a tag, then fundamentally we're changing the tree, and that creates a new requirement. We have to use this append child option or one of the similar related ones. Let's see, I saw there's something in the chat here. Div comparable to P, but for functions. It's a way of grouping content together. It's a tag. So we'll see more about that in just a second. Okay, so this is our structure. And when we use the append child, we can modify the structure. That's the key takeaway. Okay. So we can use the append child function to add new HTML elements within the div block. And there's going to be two node types. So the first one, element. The element is the page objects themselves. So in our tree example we had a second ago, that was all the paragraph tags. And the text node, that's going to be the text they contain, right? Our inner HTML attribute. So there's a couple of different types of nodes we're going to do. All right, so I'm going to lift this and I'm going to put it in our existing script file. Let's just blow this up. Okay, and we'll talk about this. So here's our show array function. So the first thing, document.getElementById div1 inner HTML results. Well, we don't have an array. We don't have a div1 yet, right? Let's create a div for that. Another div here. We'll do it below the paragraph tag. So we'll do div id equals div1. Okay, and there it is. We have this, it exists now, so we can change it. And within that, we can do a paragraph tag if we wanted, right? And I could say that has nothing, remember, because that's what I want to do. Document.getElementById inner HTML equals whatever. Yeah, we could do that. Or I could just do this. I could clear all these. Let's go ahead. Let's, sorry, I'm going to backlog a bit. I'm going to clear these. So we're going to do all these. I could just copy this, I guess. Probably should have. We'll just do this with value equals. Okay, so what do we want to have here? We want to have first name and last name. Copy these, and city. First name, last name, city, email. Okay, so that'll clear everything. Everything that we added will just show empty text after we add something. Okay, so back to our show array. So this first one, document.getElementById div1 inner HTML equals results. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to show the text, boom, results inside there. That'll be its inner HTML. Okay, then we're going to create a new array. So this second array 2 is going to be a copy of our existing array. So we're going to create an array that's of the same size, however many things are in our original profile here. And to start off with what we've hard-coded, we have 4. Okay. So our initial array 2 size is also going to be 4. So it's going to be a new array containing 4 objects. Then for each element of those, we're going to go through our div and create some stuff. Okay, so first for array 2, at its index 0, we're going to create a new paragraph element. This capital P document.create element, we're going to create a new paragraph element there. It's going to exist in our document somewhere. Okay, the text, we're going to create a string of all this text from our user profile. So we're going to create the name string and the city string and the email string. Okay. Now remember, each of these things, they have their name, right? We created their name here with the combination of the first name and last name. Then we're going to create a text node to actually contain that string. So our text node var will just be a new text node that's created containing this text. So essentially we're calling this function and we're sending along text as the argument. We're saying, here's the data we're sending along to get processed. And the browser is going to create this new text node object belonging to our document. So then array 2, we're going to append this text node child. Okay, so this array is going to actually be an array of text nodes or of paragraph elements, and paragraph elements each containing a text node. So we're going to append that child on there, and then this, on our new div1, on our div1 itself, we're going to attach the whole array. So the array is basically going to be a list of paragraph tags, and each of those paragraph tags will contain some inner HTML, which is the text node, and then we're going to attach that whole list to our div. Okay, so that's what we got going here. Let's see how this works. Let's see if anything went horribly awry. I don't think it did, but you never know. Can happen. Just do that. Let's go over to our try it now editor. Paste all this in the body. Boom. Let's see what happens. All right, so we got this. Let's go ahead with our default options. Let's see what happens. Nah, something went wrong. That's okay. Oh, we didn't do the on click. Yeah, see, it's easy to miss stuff. On click equals, we're going to do array stuff. Okay, let's see how that works. Let's submit. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so here we have down in our div, which immediately follows our set of input blocks. Got Betty Spaghetti, Eric Innes, Annie, blah, 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 and finally Mickey Mouse. Wonderful. Okay, questions on this? Let's have a brief and friendly chat. And pop up the chat window. Who's got some stuff? Does this all make sense? What do you got?
Yeah, it's kind of pretty clear for me.
Good. You know, one of the unfortunate circular things we experience in these lectures is that the students who show up and pay attention, they do not have that many questions because it's pretty clear. But the students who don't attend or who zone out during it and they come back afterward, they're the ones who do have questions, but they're not really in a position to ask them. But for those of you who are here, is there any part of this that doesn't make sense? Nothing?
I missed the first part of the lecture. Do you check our assignments, or it's going to be like checked?
The TA does the assignments, so you can follow up with her. Yeah.
All right, got it.
Grading criteria, and one thing with the assignments, the grades will get posted after the late submission window closes. So that's what we're waiting for. But yeah, if you have a question about yours, you can follow up with her. Yep. Okay. So this is a simple way to do this. Now, if we wanted, right, if we wanted to make it a little bit different, if we didn't want to use these hard-coded ones, for example, we could do this. We could start off our array of size 0, right? We can initially create that, and then whatever we add in here, we could, right? We click submit, it takes these defaults, and then we only have one, right? Initially, we have an undefined thing, so we have an array of size 0. Yeah. So in this case, we would want to build the array with extra stuff. We would have to insert that person into the first array element. And there's a, there we go. But this one that we have, it's a little easier to work with. Then we get a nice fun list. What else? Other stuff we wanted to do, if we wanted to, we could add in a new clear button, right? Something simple like that. Button on click equals clear. And then, you know, I can just put the text clear. Okay, and for that one, I could create a clear method. I'll keep this semi-alphabetical. Keep it structurally related. So here's the clear function clear. And then for this, all I would do again is the same stuff that I had before when I was clearing all these. Right, so I could just lift this. Here, I could just call clear and here. Okay, I could save that, I could run it. Now I have this clear button if I want to. It doesn't like that. What am I doing here? And I do the on click. Clear button. That's strange. Why wasn't the clear working? I have to look up something with there. Something's a little off. Oh, well, I'm going to have to come back to that one. I'm not seeing anything that's immediately wrong. And I mean, clearly the clearing part works. Huh. That's strange. Let me see. Let me try one other thing. Oh, that's strange. Oh, no. Oh, that's weird. All right, I'll have to go back and look at that. That's strange. Something is a little off here. I'm not sure what. But anyway, we have this clear button. If I wanted to, I could do that. But clearly the clear function works. So that's, like I said, that's strange. All right, I'll look it up and figure it out later. Okay, good. So anyway, this code, I'm going to post it up on Blackboard. Everything is fine. Yeah, so I'm going to save all this and paste it here in my stuff. We'll save that. What shall we call this? Let's call it, I don't know, profile input. Okay. So good, we did that. Last call for questions on that. Any final things? Nothing?
I think the appropriate name will be fun with profiles.
What's that? File with profiles?
Yeah,
well,
fun with profiles. Like remember in IDS so one, we usually had the fun with numbers thing.
Here's weird. Yeah, maybe I had fun with numbers, fun with profiles. Yeah, that's true, but that's mostly a 201 thing. There's no more fun after the Java classes. But yeah, fun with profiles, sure. That would follow the trend. Shouldn't we save with an HTML at the end? Well, I'm just going to save it as a text file. Okay, yeah, if you wanted to, you could save it as an HTML file. That's fine. But for the moment, I write it in Notepad, Yeah, I'll post it up as text and you can do whatever you want with it. See, the thing is, if it's just HTML, you can open it as an HTML page and that's fine. But if it's text, if you want to convert it to an HTML, you can, or if you just want to paste the text straight into something or alter it on your own, then it's right there in text form for you to do that. So that's why I left it in Notepad. Okay. Anyway, other thing, in case you guys don't know, by the way, you can always right-click on a page and view the page source code, right? So here, if you click in like some non-functional part of the page, and I want to view the source code, you can actually look at all the stuff that's in there. Okay, whatever's being shown at that point, you can see it. Now, in this case, it's not going to be especially good because, you know, this is just that panel, and the panel is reading the stuff that I enter in. But you can see all that, and it's going to have other functions that read from the other parts of the page. But if you construct your own page, for example, as HTML, okay, so let's go ahead. We'll do that. I'm going to save this as HTML. Okay, so now it's going to be, sure, we'll do that, profiles.html. Okay, we're still in there, fine. Now, if I want to do this, let's go here, fall 2020, profiles. I just open it. Whoop, there we go. Okay, so here I have this stuff, and if I do submit, it creates the stuff. If I do right click on this, so here's all the stuff that I had. Okay, this is all my code. Although weirdly, it doesn't show the new things that I've created. It just shows the source code. It doesn't show the code that as it currently exists in the object. So if it did, there would be this div1 here, right? And we don't see that there's really a div1 anywhere that's filled out with data. There's a div, sure, but I don't see the data within it. I just see the original code. Anyway, so there you have it. But yeah, if you want to see the stuff in a web page itself, yeah, you can always right click on it and get the view page source. Okay, so a little bit more about div tags. So an HTML div tag, what it is, it's a division. It's a section of a page. And typically the reason why you would want to do this, if you have some special formatting you want to put in place, or if you want to hold an object or a set of objects. So typically a div, like a paragraph, is going to be a container for text, typically, but a div tag is going to be a container for a set of one or more HTML tags. And what makes it really handy in real life is it's a way to logically group them together. Okay, so if you have some sort of function or some sort of page structure, where you have, you know, div, and then within the div, what do you have? Maybe you have a, you know, background image, paragraph tags, maybe a button or two, something like that. If you want to reuse this, it's very easy for the humans to say, oh, this div is one logically coherent block, and I can take this and use it somewhere else. Okay, that's the real advantage of a div. If you have these things all displayed separately without the div tag, yeah, they'll all be there and they'll all display correctly. But for the humans, it's a little bit trickier to see where it starts and ends. Another thing you'll often see with sites that auto-create page content, so, you know, if you go there and say, well, create these site widgets here, they'll often embed them in div tags. So that means if you want to scan through and alter it, it's very easy to spot the logical groupings of these things. So sometimes you have groups like forms or sets of input fields, other content. If you're not very good with HTML, or if the stuff just gets complicated, the div tags are a nice way to be able to look at and say, oh, okay, these are the endpoints of that set of page elements. So div tags are handy for that. Okay. Our next thing, HTML tables. Right? This is what we're going to do the rest of the day. So it looks like people don't have a lot of questions, which is okay, which means we'll finish early, which it is what it is. Okay. So in HTML, tables are a container with a table tag, and the table tag has 3 component types. So first, TH for the table header, that's the top row, you know, whatever goes on above that, above the table itself. TR for a table row, and then TD for table data, which is the individual cells in each row. Okay, and each of these, you can format them separately in the page style. Or if you want to have them just all be the same style, you can just do a comma between them. Okay, so if wherever you're doing the style tag in the page head, right, you can enforce that. So I'll go through to this link. So here in our style tag in the page head, we have our table THTD. We have the border is going to be 1 pixel solid black. Okay, that's fine. If I wanted to, right, I could do the table as a different style. So let's set in that. Okay, so here I'm going to do the border. So for the table as a whole, let's do 3 pixels. Ah, see, now the outline border is heavier. And if I want to have, right, the table header, sure, let's have the table header be solid black, but right, the TD would be something different. The individual cells. Okay, we'll do that solid red is fine. See, so now the individual cells are red, but the header, the table header, that's going to be black. Okay. You can also have a dotted. That's one of them. See, now it's dotted. How about that? Anyway, you don't have to memorize all those. You can look them up, all these different, you know, basically outline formats. But that's how you set up the styles in the style tag of the head block, of the head tag. Okay. So let's go ahead and do some table stuff. So in our example, what did we do? We created an array of paragraph objects, right? That was within this method, right? Our show array. We created the array of paragraph tags there. And then we assigned each profile to an array element. Now, the array, you don't need that to show the data, but what's really useful is that you can refer to them later. Okay, so for example, you could build a table structure that contains the array elements. You could allow highlighting any table rows that are clicked, for example. And to do that, you need to give them ID attributes, some kind of ID attribute. Okay, so let's play around a little bit with that. Let's build a table structure. Okay, so if we wanted to do that within our existing code, let's save this as a new document. Okay, profile tables, profile table, that's fine. Okay, we can play around a little bit with this. So for example, instead of creating a paragraph tag, we could create a table in our thing here, right? So we could say, very first thing, right? So we have this, the inner HTML as results. We create the table structure itself. So document.get element by ID. Okay, and here div one again. And we're going to do create element. And we're going to give it a table. All right, let me see. It's been a little while since I've done this. I'm going to do a quick lookup. Create element table. I don't want to mess that up. JavaScript, create element table. Table. So table in all caps. Good. That's what I figured, but okay. Boom. Table. Okay, so then we'll have that. I guess while I'm looking up, let me do a quick lookup on table row and stuff. I'm sure it's probably TR. Yeah, same thing. Okay, so TR and then TD for the data. I figured, but sometimes they're a little off. Okay, so let's go back to our code. here we go. So we got this table. We're going to create the table. We create the same var. Within each of those, instead of creating a paragraph tag, we're going to create a tr tag. Okay, so that's going to be very easy there. And then the text for each of those, right? So that's going to be a tr. Each tr is going to contain a set of table data, right? So again, for each of those, what are we going to do? Well, we are going to assign each of those to one of the data fields. So we'll say var text. I would just do this. Let's create a new for each one of those. Array 2 index. Okay, that's going to be the tr. So we're going to, on that, we're going to append, we're going to create a new element. Okay. Okay, we'll do this. Okay. Okay, so for each of those, we could create our own TD. But we're going to do this document.create text node text, append child, text node. Yeah. Okay, we'll do this. There, TD1 equals this. And then we can change the text node on this. Yep. Sorry, I didn't like that. Okay. Okay, so we're going to create a set of these vars for the various data fields, right? So we'll have one for name, and one for city, and one for email. Okay, so this can be D1, D2. Now for D1, right, we're going to also create this text node, right? So it's going to create a text node that contains text. We'll append that. So here, var D1 text equals what? Document.create text node, and we're going to send on this array index.name. Okay. And for the next one, we'll do city. And for the next one, we'll do email. Okay, so let's do city here. Now it's a little gummed up, but we'll get to it. Okay. So this is what we've done so far. Okay, so this stuff is going to get changed, so don't worry about this. But here, we're creating a table row for this particular array index. Within that row, we're also creating a set of table data. So the first one contains the text node, right? And here we're going to say this document. I'm just going to lift this. I'll lift the, we'll do this. Okay, so here we'll say D1 text. We're going to append that child. Okay, we're going to attach this text node to D1. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing with D2 with its own. Oh, I should fix that. We're going to fix these in a second too. So that text node would instead be D1 text. This second one is going to be D2 text. This third one, make sure I haven't done anything really messed up. Okay, D3 text. And then for that one, we're going Okay, D3 is going to be D3 text. Okay, and then for all that, I'm going to append this thing. Okay, so get element by div I1, I'm going to append the child this. So what I'm doing, I'm creating this table row. Okay. Within that row, I'm creating 3 table data elements and populating them with the appropriate text data from our profiles. And then at the end, I'm taking this, okay, I'm taking this TR and appending it to the table. Okay, so here I have to actually append it to D1. So let's do that. So I'm going to create the table. Let's see. Let's do this. Let's do their table equals document dot create. So here I'm going to create the table. And at the end, I'm going to append this child. So document.get element by ID. So I'm just going to say table. All right. So all this stuff, here's the table. And I'm going to go through one at a time. I'm going to append each of those table elements to this table object. And then at the end, I'm going to append that as a child to this, to div1. So this document dot get element by ID. Okay, and here I'm going to say div1 dot append child, and I'm just going to append table to it. Okay, so first thing, create the table itself, right? That's going to exist as an HTML object. Then run through the array, create a row for each set of data. Within each row, create the fields as table data elements. And then at the end, once I've fully constructed that table, I'm just going to append the table to D1. So let's see how this works. Oh, and let's up in the style tag, I guess I'll do that. So here I'll do the header of the head. And in the head, I'll do a style. And I'm going to lift my code from here. Let's go back a couple wherever I was. There we go. Put those in. Oh, did I not do the styles? I don't think I did. Yeah. Okay, let's see how this goes. Let's see if I did anything too horrible. All right, let's see what happens on submit. Ah, shit, I fucked something up. Okay. Let's see, I'll take a minute, see if I can figure out something obvious that I missed. But that's, you know, that's what it produces this thing. So div1 is basically a null object that's going here. Create element, var array2, create element tr. D1 append child, D1 text. Oh, yeah, I'm not appending it to the rows. That's the problem. Okay, here we go. We'll scroll down a little bit. So each of these, right, I've created the table rows, but I haven't actually appended the data to the rows. So that's what's going on here. So here, D1, I create the data, I fill it up, I append it, but at the end, I also need to remember to append that to the array index. Okay. Dot append child D1. Okay, and I'll do that same thing for these other two. Okay, D2 and D3. Okay, let's see how that works. Cautiously optimistic. Okay. Ta-da, there we go. We got our table. How about that? Okay, so I'm going to go a quick walkthrough through this. Again, this is, JavaScript. It's a little picky, so it's much better if, this is your first time through it, much better to do it in small blocks, like one thing at a time. Okay, because if you make a tiny mistake, the whole page is going to be invalidated and you can spend a long time trying to figure out what went wrong. So very quickly going to go through this stuff again. So this is the show array, and this is what's interesting. Okay, so first off, this will print the text results above the table, and you can format that in some different way if you like. You could always put it in a paragraph tag or give it some kind of style, whatever. Here, create the table tag. I'll put that HTML. The table tag. Okay. Remember, array 2 is going to be create the array to hold the HTML tags, right, that we're adding, that we create for our table. Okay, so array is going to hold all those. Basically, each element of the array will be a table row. And will contain a few table data elements. Fine. So then this is the loop. Loop through each profile to be displayed. Okay, we've got that. For each profile, create a new TR tag. Right, we're going to need a table row to display each profile. That's great. So this one, right, this is D1. Create and append the TD tag for name. Okay, for profile name, we'll edit that. And likewise, create and append the TD tag for profile city. And the last one, create and append the TD tag for profile email. Okay. So again, for each of these, we're going to create a new element, right? Our new HTML tag. We're going to fill it out with some text, right? So create a text node that contains the profile attribute, in this case, name. And we're going to append that to our table data. And then we're going to append our table data object to our table row. Okay, and then the last thing we do, append the TR to table. Okay, that's what we're doing here. So table.append child array2 index, array2 index. This is going to be a row. This table is the table. So we're attaching the rows to the tables. And then finally, last thing, append the table to the div tag. Okay, so then it displays. So that's what we're doing here. That's what we did, rather, because it happened. It's done. Questions on any of that? Any aspect of this? Does it all make sense? Are we all fairly happy? Think we could replicate this at home on a homework assignment, for example? How is everybody? How you doing?
Hope we can make it.
Yeah. Okay. Questions on any of this? Okay, so the big thing we learned here, I guess we learned a couple things. Number one, we got some practical experience in doing things like rows and objects and arrays. We played along with some of the basics there. But the big new thing that we learned, right, was creating new HTML tags within an existing HTML document. And there are two parts for that. Number one, the create element, and number two, when necessary, the create text node. Obviously, the table itself doesn't need a create text node, but the individual table data elements do. All right, see a chat. It's a little confusing. Well, of course I'm going to put the code on Blackboard. Yes, that's what I do. I mean, I don't expect people to remember this all in their head. Yeah, that's why I'm saving this stuff, right? Because I'm going to post this code on Blackboard so that people can check it out. Yep. All right. Other stuff. We got like 15 minutes, but this is what I was going to cover today. I'll stop recording, I guess. I'll even stop the sharing. I'm going to try to figure out, people got questions, you stick around, you ask, whatever. Try to figure out what was going on with that clear function with the button, because I did not see what was wrong, but there must have been something wrong. Okay, here we go. Thanks, have a nice day. Yeah, you too. All right, it's been a hoot. Okay, well, if people have questions, you can stick around and ask. Here I am. All right. Let's see, I'm going to stop the share, stop the recording, boom, and boom, and it's been a hoot.